Hey, this is Katrina from Earthheim, and this is going to be a video about how to cover up your plants for late freezes and frost. So it is May 7th or 8th, and tonight it is going to get down to 27 degrees, which is below freezing. And then the next 3 nights it's going to be down to 35 and 36 degrees at night. Which is still pretty cold, and a lot of plants aren't even going to do well in that temperature, but definitely tonight is going to be the worst because it's going to get several degrees below freezing. So I'm going to provide some tips on how to cover up your plants, and I hope you find this useful. So the first thing you want to do when considering covering up your plants because of a freeze or frost, you want to prioritize. So how much material do you have that you can use to cover up your plants? So different materials you can use to cover up your plants would be sheets, frost cloth, which would be the best, cardboard boxes. You can invert plastic pots or plastic containers to cover the plant, blankets, anything that's breathable that is a material, and maybe even newspaper, straw. If you have straw, a bale of straw, you can lightly cover your plants. This is especially good in the vegetable garden. What you do not want to use is plastic sheeting or plastic bags. It's probably not going to offer too much protection, but if that's all you have, you may give it a try. With that, you want to avoid having the material, especially if it's plastic, you want to avoid having it touch any part of the plant. So you want to pretty much be a bubble or just sitting on top of the plant. So I have some various materials around my property that I'm going to use, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to use those. So this is the most ideal material, and this is a frost cloth, and I bought a huge package of it several years ago because I actually used this to grow vegetables throughout the winter, like spinach and lettuces. So this is the huge piece that I had from that. What I'm actually going to use it for is my fringe tree right here, and this is a priority for me because this tree has already gone through one freeze, and here were all of its old buds that froze and came off. You can see here's a little piece that dried up and died. So it has slowly been sending out all new growth. Last year it flowered beautifully, but this year it's not going to. So it is expending all this energy again to regrow, and I don't want it to have to do that again because it might not even come back if it had to do that. So for me, this is a priority. I tried to make a little shield out of some roofing I had. That's just to kind of retain more heat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cloth and drape it completely over top the fringe tree. I'm going to make sure the sheet touches the ground, and that's because we want the radiant heat from the ground to warm up inside of there and to rise the temperature. Now if I just put the sheet around the top of this plant and didn't have it touching the ground, that's not going to do anything or very, very little. And it needs to be totally enclosed, no gaps in the fabric left open, so it'll retain that heat. So plant containers are a great way to cover your plants. They're rigid, so they'll offer an air bubble over top of the plant. They have holes in them, so they're breathable. They have some weight to them, so if it's windy, that can help keep them in place. So if you have some large ones, that's great to cover up some larger plants. Small ones you can put over top some of your smaller plants. It's also a great way to protect young plants from rabbits, I have found. So here are a bunch of plants that I grow, and a lot of them have come up early in the season, and so they're already pretty cold tolerant. But I have this shade awning that might help retain some heat, I don't know. But as a last resort, I have some shade cloth that I'm going to just drape over the plants, and hopefully that might offer some protection and maybe will retain some heat. So it's not ideal, it may not work perfectly, but it's something. Another material you can use is simply a bale of straw. I keep that around for mulching my vegetable garden, and here I planted all my onion transplants maybe about a week or so ago, and I just lightly put some straw over top of them, not to damage the onion, but straw is a great insulator, and so onions are pretty cold tolerant anyway, but having the straw in there is just going to offer some protection. So a bale of straw you can just lightly spread over some of your plants, and that will hopefully help them retain some heat. So these are some seed trays that I have, and they're perennial flowers, so I'm not really worried about protecting them from the freeze. If they were annuals, I definitely would think of something better to do, but these are low to the ground, and I have them sitting on concrete, and so the concrete is going to retain some heat and help warm the trays up throughout the night. You could try this as well. You could set pots or plants up against your house, because the house will retain some heat, or any kind of protected spot, maybe against the shed, against the fence, things like that. Again, it's about prioritizing. If I would use that as a last resort, but it may help the plants retain some heat throughout the night. Cardboard is a great insulator. So if you have any boxes, you can simply just set those over your plants. If they're flattened, you could try to just lightly sit them over top of your plants. But cardboard is a great insulator, and it's also breathable, so any of that material you have would be a good choice to try to cover up some of your plants. Now, plastic is not ideal, but you could use it as a last resort, and maybe on some things that you think will tolerate the frost. But I have this semi-clear tarp that I'm just gonna drape over some plants, because I have a lot of plants, and I figured it doesn't hurt. But I'm gonna try to drape it as a tent, and so I don't want it to touch the plant. I'm gonna try to have it arching over the plant. Another similar material, this is just kind of some foam sheeting that is used to ship products. I used that with some success the last freeze we had. So those are some last resorts, but it could work. So now's the time to get kind of creative in some different materials you can use to cover up your plants. I'm holding this umbrella that could actually be used to sit over top of a plant. Just make sure you stake it down somehow, because you don't want it to fly away. Now, since I'm holding an umbrella, one thing to say is that today in Lexington it's going to be raining a lot, which will make it a little bit more of a pain to cover stuff up because it's going to be so wet. But the rain is actually a good thing because the plants are going to get hydrated, and that's going to help them recover from any freeze or frost damage. Also, I've kind of read some different places that moisture actually will help, I think, raise the relative humidity. I might be backwards on that, but so it can actually help with temperature regulation, all this rain that we're having today. So this is kind of abnormal. I've never had to deal with this this late in the season. So the plants you want to prioritize and bring inside if you can are your vegetables, especially like your tomatoes, squashes, cucumbers. If you've already planted those would be a priority. Also annual flowers, I know how expensive those can be, so if you could bring those in, or prioritize covering those up. And then after that would be some tender perennials, like my fringe tree is going to be one. A lot of the perennials that have come up already are hardier to cold temperatures because they've come up already. But I'll probably still try to cover some of those up. If you already have some hanging baskets, that's pretty easy. For this one, I'm just going to take it down and set it inside my gazebo here, and I think that should be adequate enough. You could also set it up against inside your porch, or just bring it inside. So hanging containers are pretty easy. Just one last tip. If you have a tree or a shrub that you have purchased but have not planted yet, like you can see, I have a tree over here that I have not planted yet. What I will do, I'll actually just lay it on its side, so laying the tree across the ground, and so that's going to retain heat from the earth and protect that tree better than if it was just standing upward like it is. That's going to really expose it to the cold.